Okay, so today we're going to be making a case open tool or a 3D printing spatula out of titanium. So this is the original design. This design is 4.682 inches by 0.8 inches wide. And then looking at our piece that we have, our titanium piece, I'm looking over here, and then I am trying to decide which is the best way to get the pieces out of it. And so now that I decided I couldn't really get them out of it this way, I turned it sideways and it looks like I can get some 1-inch strips out of it going down. It's kind of hard to see on the titanium, so I drew this separate sketch to show what we're really trying to get out of here. Trying to make the best use of our materials. So use your ruler, and we made these pieces 5 inches and these increments 1 inch as we're going down. The lines are actually not going all the way across on the material, they're just a little lines on the edges. And now we're ready to cut it. The squaring shears. So the squaring shears, we'll have to be careful. This guard has a potential to pinch your fingers. So this is a pinch point. So we want to make sure we keep our hands away from that point. With the marks that we made on the metal, going across this way and going across this way, we're going to be making our cuts in the material. So the first cut I want to make is the cut at the 5-inch mark. So I'm going to put the material in, and I'm going to look right through here, and I'm going to see the marks on the material. So see if you can get the material. And I don't know if you can see that in there. Can you see the? Okay. Right there and right there. Okay. Can you see it inside the gap? Okay. So we want to align the little tabs that we've drawn on with the ruler, and now we're ready to cut. So we're ready to cut, and I'm going to press firmly down with my foot. And then I'm going to slowly let it up. Careful not to hit myself. Okay, so that one's done. And I have this one. And then I realize I'm actually going to need to make more lines. So I cut it in the middle, so I have it perfectly cut in the middle, but now I realize I have to make lines on the other side right there to be able to get the 1-inch pieces to come out. Okay, so now that I have lines on both sides, which was my mistake, I cut it before I had enough lines. Now I'm going to go ahead and feed the piece in and then cut on each of the lines. So this will give me at least 3 pieces. I don't know whether I'm going to get enough for my 4th piece, so we'll see what we can get to come out here. So I'm going to go ahead and place the material inside the shear, and I'm going to move it up. You know, you can move the light a little bit if you're having trouble seeing where the marks are. Okay, that looks pretty good right there. I'm gonna make 1 cut. Slowly let it up. Okay. Then I'm gonna go in and then make my 2nd cut. You wanna go ahead and cut right on the line. Okay. Now let's see if I can get my last cut out of this. Boy, this is I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this without getting another piece of material and putting it in. So I'm gonna slowly push the material in, and using another piece of material, I hope that I can get it just right to get what I want. I'm gonna move it slowly into position this time, because if I move it too far, it's going to fall out the bottom, and then I'm going to have to pick it up and start slowly moving it in position again. Right there, I think that's good. Nice. Okay, now I'm going to use this piece of material to push it through. Oh, I can grab it like that. I don't need to worry about getting my fingers too close. Now I'm going to cut the rest of these and push this in. The first ones are always a lot easier to get than the last ones. Push down firmly. You don't want to let it up when let the foot pedal up once you started to push it down, because it can create a jagged edge. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we're gonna get our last piece now. I'm gonna use that last little bit that I got out to try to push this in. There we go. Got it too far. Yeah, the last one's always the hardest. Okay, right there, making sure my fingers are clear of the guard. I press down my last time and I get out my last piece. So all the pieces I just cut, how many pieces are we supposed to have? 8 pieces. All right, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we got 8 pieces and we're ready to go. So we have some nice strips, and the strips are very close to being all the same width. You can see that there's only a small variation in the width, and some of that has to do with the last 2 that we cut being a little bit longer than 1 inch. So on our piece for our tool, we're going to sketch 2 radiuses here and here on the left and the right, and then on the other end on the nose we're going to sketch 2 angles, and then we're going to have a small radius there. This piece will be cut off on the shear, and this piece will be cut off on the shear, and the rest will be handled with the belt sander. Okay, so for this one's going to be quite a bit smaller, so we're going to cut off the back, cut down completely on the side, and cut the nose off there, and then flip it around and cut that other part off. Okay, so the hardest one is going to get this long part done. So I'm going to try to push this in here. Can you see the line? I want to try to go down the line, but it looks like a little bit. There, right there. Okay, let's try to get this piece out. It looks like we went straight down the line, and that is pretty square, so I'm pretty happy with the way that came out. Next, I'm going to knock off the back and then the 2 edges here and here. So I'm going to look down here and I'm going to knock the back off. Okay, that's off. Then I'm going to go and do the side. Then the other side. Okay, so we're left with our piece that looks almost identical to the original tool. So this is ready to go. This one is going to be a little bit wider, and so that just means that there's a little bit more meat to hold on to when we're making the handle. This one's going to definitely fit in your pocket a little bit better. So let's see what this looks like. So first we're going to just knock off there and there. We're not going to take any off the back because this tool is actually larger than our original. So right a line there, and then right on the line there. Okay, so this one's ready to go. Okay, next. Again, this one's pretty much the same size. The same size as the piece, not the same size as the original. So we're gonna just knock it off there and there, and the corners. So let's get this piece down here. And then this this piece over here. And then there's a couple little pieces on the edge. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, next one. So again, we're just going to be knocking that edge off and that edge off. And these are pretty small, but I can go ahead and knock just a little bit off there to save my time on the belt sander. So again, I look carefully at the line. Make sure the light's on so you can really see the line. Then we're going to cut the other side off. And this doesn't come to a point, doesn't need to, because we're going to just go ahead and round it in the belt sander. Knock my little corner off, and then knock my other corner off. Okay, so it looks like we're pretty ready to go, and now we're ready for the next steps. All right, so here we have our belt sander, and the belt sander, before we use it, we want to make sure it's secured to the table. So we have put the C-clamp on the table to hold it so it's not going to move around on us while we're using it. Okay. The object of using the belt sander is not to put any of the material in at this angle or lower, because when we put it in at that lower angle, it could kick on us and kind of flip the piece out. So we want to avoid going in at this angle. This angle seems all right and safe, but for the edge that we want to put on this particular tool, we want to be going more at this angle or higher. So we want to keep it definitely tilted down, and we want to kind of roll it back and forth. How it will look in your hands is you're going to be going back and forth like this, rolling the edges back and forth like that, while the machine is running, obviously. Okay, but this is just a demonstration of how you would go through and get those edges and the angle you would be holding the material at. Okay, you would switch the belt sander on and then you would start to move. Okay, as soon as you're done sanding on the belt sander, you're going to want to get a nice fine piece of sandpaper. This is a very fine grit, so it shouldn't be very coarse. And you want to keep a low angle on your tool as you're sanding it like this. So the angle is actually almost as low as the whole table, and so this is the type of angle that we want to get in while we're doing our sanding. And so you want to try to get a nice edge, and the edge, when we're done sanding, should be about 1/8 of an inch from the end. So you can see that there is a kind of an edge that goes around the whole front face of the tool where it's tapered down, and it comes to not a point, but it comes to kind of like a round little nose that's much thinner, maybe half or 1/3 as thin as the total thickness of the material. Once we have a nice edge on our tool, then we're ready to attach the handle. Your paper is going to have a rectangle. So first draw your rectangle, that's the actual piece. So I'm going to just grab somebody's piece over here, and we're going to put this down here. And so the first measurement you want is the actual measurement here. So we're going to get the dial caliper, make sure that we're all zeroed out on the dial caliper and that we're in inches. And we're going to open up the digital caliper wide enough to fit this piece in, and then we're going to slowly roll it back with our finger. So I'm going to tilt it up a little bit so we can grab this. Okay, so actually I'm going to hold it right here. So I'm holding it and I'm kind of putting it up against that other rail, and we're getting 4.9645. So that's going to be our length. So then we would write our overall length here. Okay, then we're going to measure our width. So we roll it in, and then we measure the width of it. And so for this one, I'm getting 0.9885. So I write down all my significant figures. It's accurate to, you know, it's accurate to that, to the fourth decimal place. So we have those. So we write our length and our width, and then the tail section I got off of the original tool that we're working with. So you're going to take this measurement from Mr. Patino, and then the nose section also, you're going to take this measurement from Mr. Patino. You're going to add these two together, the tail and the nose, and you're going to subtract them from your overall length. When you subtract them, you're going to get the length of your handle, and the width is just going to be the same width of your tool. So I want you to draw me the two rectangles and then do your subtraction of these two numbers from your overall length, and then I want you to end up with your rectangle size for your handle and label that on your piece of paper. When we have that done, then we're ready to cut out that body for the handle and then put the rivet holes in it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up CorelDRAW. Okay, once CorelDRAW is open, we're going to go ahead and wait for the pop-up menu, and we're going to say New Blank Document. So here we're going to select that, close that little window, and we're just going to start by drawing a rectangle. Just draw a rectangle any size, it doesn't matter at this point. We're going to now look at our piece of paper, and we're going to notice the measurements that we have. So this is our handle measurements, so we're going to input these two measurements, and it's going to change the size, and it's going to change the size of our rectangle in CorelDRAW. Then we'll add our fillets, and then we'll add our holes. Okay, so the first dimension is the width, and the width is 3.3815, and then the height is going to be 1.0640, and so now we have the appropriate size. We jump up here to put our fillets in. So these are going to be our fillets. Make sure that it has round corners, and so we're going to put in 1/8 of an inch, which is 0.125. So we entered 0.125 up there, and you can see that now we have nice round edges on our handle. I'm going to change this to hairline and the color red so that we can do a cut, and then I also need to put in some holes for the rivets. So let's go ahead and draw two holes. Let's just draw one hole there and one hole there. So we have our two holes, and so let's resize our holes. So this hole, I need to make this 0.120, and then also the bottom 0.120. Change it to a hairline red. So it just shows up 0.12. That significant figure kind of drops off, and then we can go ahead and put this into position. Let's go ahead and change this one also to 0.120, and then change the other one also to 0.120. Hairline red, so we do a cut. Now that I have both of these the right size, I can go ahead and drag them into place approximately 1/4 inch in from the edges. And you can see your little ruler at the top, so that can give you an indication of where we are in this. If your holes keep changing, like you change one value and then the other one changes, you have to make sure that this is unlocked here so that you can change without constrained proportions. So let's drag our hole into position, and so I'm going to drag it about right here. That's about, let's see, if that's at the 1/2 inch, that's going to be about right there. And then we're just looking for approximately 1/4, 1/2 inch in. It's somewhere in that range. Okay, so we have our 2 holes there. And so this is ready to cut out now. If you want to add something decorative like a logo or your name or, you know, something fancy on here, you're more than welcome to. But now we're ready to save our handle. And handle, I'm just going to call this handle test. So it's saved, and now I'm going to send it to the printer, Versa Laser System 2.3. So we're going to say print it, and we're going to jump over to the laser interface, and we see that we have red lines here, so we know the laser understands that it's going to be cutting. We're going to go ahead and orient the laser on our material next, so we can start the rest of the cut. So we have to just adjust the laser a little bit. So the first thing before you get your material in is you should adjust the laser. You should measure the thickness of your material, and then once you measure your thickness of your material and the material is in here, then you need to adjust your height of the laser so that it's at the 2-inch focal height using the focal length tool. So remember, we look for this part of the tool being directly under the 2-inch line on the laser. I'm going to drag this into position so we have a nice position on it. We're a little bit off the material, so I'm going to scoot it over a little bit more. Okay, that looks good. Check my other corner. That looks good. Now I'm going to duplicate. So I have 2. And now I'm ready to go into my settings and define the thickness of the material. So this is plastic, acrylic plastic, continuous cast acrylic, and then we're going to put in that this is 0.06 thickness material. Click OK, don't just press enter. We're ready to close the laser lid, turn on the exhaust fan, and then begin our laser cut. Get some double-sided tape and go ahead and put 2 strips on the inside in between your rivet holes so we can secure it to the body of the tool. We want to use a scrap piece of material to secure our tool down to this wood block, and we want to use a C-clamp. So put the C-clamp far enough away from the hole so that we can drill straight down in these 2 positions. This one's already done. And then just tighten it a little bit. You want to get it snug, but you don't want to over tighten it because that can crack your plastic. Now that it's snug, I have both hands free to pick up the drill, make sure the drill is going in the right direction to cut, and then we can start drilling our holes through the titanium. There we go. Back it up, reverse, and then we're out. So let's go flip it to the clockwise direction. Now we can start drilling. There we are. Reverse it, pull it out. Now we're ready to put in our rivets and align the other side. So after we laser cut the handle, we're putting the rivets in. The rivets go down and they protrude from the other side, you know, a little bit, but not too much because we're going to have to flare them. And if it's a solid color piece like this, we can put a little bit of double-sided tape in between the pieces and the center metal piece so that it can flex a little bit better for us. Now we're ready to pop these rivets. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and firmly push down on the pop rivet gun. That it starts to flare out this part a little bit. Then we're going to push down a little bit more, and you can see it starting to flare. That's what we want. And that is the sound that we want to hear. So we have a smooth piece on this side, and then we're just going to need to flare this out so that it loses its rough edge. Now we're going to repeat that process for the other two rivets. You always want to make sure that the rivet is completely down before we start this side of the rivet. So this side should be flush with the plastic before we start. And it takes about 2 pumps. So then we're going to start it, and then release, let it go down again, and then we're going to pop it till it clicks. There we go. Using our, got it? We're going to be using our number 5 rivet tool, and this is for hot rivets, but we're going to go ahead and do this, use this part of the rivet tool in a cold process where we flare these sides out a little bit so we get a nice round, more mushroom top on this side, because this side is nice and flat, and this side isn't going to irritate your fingers in any way when you're holding the tool, but this side has a few little rough edges that if we just flare them out a little bit, this will be much more pleasant to hold on to. Okay, so now the side has been flared out, and now it's nice and round, and it's smoother to the touch. So let's go on to the next one. Now you don't have to hit it very hard because you don't want to crack the plastic. You just want to knock down any of the edges that are on this side so that it's not sharp. Okay, so the point isn't to get this to be completely flat up against the plastic, because that will probably expand the rivet head too much and it will crack your plastic. So just a little bit, and they're kind of like medium to light taps. These are not hard taps, because if you tap it too hard, you're going to shatter your plastic. Okay, that feels nice, that feels nice. That feels pretty good. Okay, so we have them. We have nice, round, smooth to the touch rivets on the back of our pop rivets.